So, welcome everybody to this special edition of Inside the Den. I'm really excited about the conversation that I'm going to be having today with Melanie Rossetti-Jackson. She's the Assistant Director for Sports and Youth Programs at University Recreation. She is also adjunct faculty for the, and what is it? Is it COE?
College of Education. I work specifically under sport management. So
Okay, cool. Let's kick that right. Let's just kick it right there. What is that exactly?
yeah, so under the College of Education, there are 3 or 4 different departments. One is like the math department, leadership and development, and education. And then underneath that also is the sport management program. So I teach a class about basically what I do for a living. So it is a prerequisite class to be able to program and run a large special event, or learning the steps to do so. It's a prerequisite to getting into the college and to do your final capstone, which is actually running an authentic event. In my class, you get to learn and probably get it wrong in running some type of event. And so they're learning the steps in order to get there, in order to do that in real life and in a real community.
So give us an example of what an event would be.
Sure. Yeah. So large scale special event in the context of recreation and sport. So that would be something like a wrestling tournament. How do you run that? What are the steps to get there? Who do you contact? Where do you have it? What time of year is best to do that? All types of things. So you just run through the logistics of like what you'd need to think through if you were a true programmer and someone working on the operational side of programming an event. So how do you get people to register? Where do you market? What's the risks involved with a wrestling tournament? So you walk through the steps of all those things. So it's not just I want to run a wrestling tournament. Let's see if we can do this. It's how do you actually make it happen?
That's very cool. I had no idea.
Yeah,
Okay, and so let's go back to university recreation where,
sure.
this is where WSU Wrestling and university recreation. This is where we live on campus. It's within
Yeah.
the recreation department. So, can you just kind of briefly describe kind of what the scope and mission of like club sports in university recreation? What's that mission and scope?
Yeah, absolutely. So University Recreation houses multiple different departments, and within that is the sports department, which includes intramural sports and club sports. So our mission with UREC is actually quite simple. It's to inspire healthy, active living. And that is a pretty standard thing. We want people to find some sort of recreation that fulfills them on this campus and within our campus community. So faculty, staff, students, that type of thing. Under the sport area, we have 25 sport clubs, 2 of which are varsity. Wrestling's a new varsity club. Yay, yay, wrestling. And underneath our kind of umbrella, basically all of our clubs are student run and student led. And then when we get to that varsity level, that's when you have a head coach who is a salaried coach. And then you have time with your advisors like myself, where you get to the nitty gritty and logistics of what needs to get done in order to make things happen. So underneath our umbrella, we are there to support students in their journey of being student athletes, being academic students, and kind of discovering their sport journey, to be quite honest. So we help governing bodies like USA Wrestling or USA Rugby or different USA Volleyball, those types of things. We help them meet their standards so that they can actually go to competitions and compete. And then we also help just kind of make sure they meet the guidelines of the university, which are, there's a lot of different things and logistics with that.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to get away from all the rules and regulations, right?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Okay, so let's just kind of go back. Let's just take us back, if you will, talking about varsity club program. And for anyone, when WSU Wrestling finally announced we're a varsity club, people were like, what does that mean? And
Yeah.
does that mean that, we're now like a university program? And we're like, no, that's not what that means. So, um, first, maybe a history of varsity programs. We're only the second one in
Yeah.
in the recreation history. Talk a little bit about how, what varsity is, how we got here.
Sure.
We explained to us the other sport that had varsity status, and maybe a little bit of the process of getting wrestling to varsity status.
Yeah. Well, in my 6-ish years here, varsity varsity crew has been our only crew club. And so, or our only varsity club. And so, I've been watching wrestling move to that point since day one, which has been really cool. So to be at that varsity status, you have to sustainably be able to salary a coach. You have to, um, you have to compete consistently, have at least 20 hours of practice weekly, and have some sort of regional and national tournament that you compete in consistently. So all of those things are part of our requirements. A huge piece of that, though, is being able to financially and sustainably have a coach and a full-time coach who is able to then be part of us, part of our UREC staff, as a full-time person who is a salaried person who is then overseen by our department, versus all of the other, every single other sport apart from Cougar Crew has volunteer coaches. So everyone is a volunteer for their club. And it is really like, it sounds kind of like, oh, good, you just get a salaried coach. That's great. But it is really hard to get there, especially when you think about the fact that like those clubs are run by students and led by students. And every year they have new leadership and they have new people trying to do, different things at the club and the direction that it's heading. And so to be able to hit that varsity status, you really have to show that you both are fundraising to sustain the year you're in and to think about the future of what that can look like, to be able to have that salaried coach who helps with all the recruiting, all the major events, all like the big fundraising, that type of thing. So Cougar Crew has been a varsity club. Actually, Cougar Crew is what helped us establish what a varsity club will look like. Because they have a major alumni base, which kind of helps sustain their coaching staff and things like that year by year. And actually, they got kind of housed under us a little bit more because in the athletics department there is a women's crew team,
Right.
and that is housed under Title IX. And
Yeah.
so the men's crew team didn't really have a place to go. So it was like, okay, what do we do? And so through us, they worked their way up to that varsity status and kind of helped us establish what that really truly looks like. And so the biggest thing is those 20 hours a week of designated practice time. When they're allocated funds from the university, which are just like helping support the things that they're doing, they can get up to 10% of what they fundraise in a year. For example, wrestling fundraises over $100,000. Like the students do, coaches do, all of that, which is so cool.
Yeah.
So they can get up to $10,000 in additional funding from University Recreation to help them succeed in whatever they're doing. So crew is the same way. Varsity tier clubs can only get up to that amount versus our other tiers that we have, which is tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So tier 3 is very, very recreational, very low impact, very recreational.
Yeah.
Very like, try it out, see what you think, versus our varsity clubs are much more highly competitive. And they do compete regionally and nationally. They travel a lot more than most clubs. And to be quite honest, they get a lot more administrative time from myself.
Cool. Well, you talked about that, clubs are led by students, and what, an accomplishment and task and undertaking it is for a student-led group to drive something towards varsity status. So that makes me think about James Cox, our president.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't mind, I'd like you to just take a moment and brag on James and what it's been like to work with James, and from your perspective, just brag on him a little bit so
Oh,
we can
absolutely.
support him.
Yeah, James is amazing. First off, James has been the most dedicated, I think, student that I worked with while I've been here at WSU. Like dedicated to the program, a sincere love for the program and where it's going. James is the full, apart from all of our coaches, James is really the full driving force to making varsity status happen. He has pushed my buttons so many times in the best way possible. In the best way. But he always has the best
Melanie,
intention.
in wrestling, we just call that pressure. We're just
Oh
crazy.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, then there was lots of pressure now. But he, in the best way possible, he's so great and he's very driven. He's also very organized, which is great. So he had a vision well before I think everyone else really saw and got on board, except for Coach Phil and Susan, of course. And I think that's really cool because it really was the driving force for keeping the momentum forward and going, building up a lot of rapport in the community. And then getting all of the student athletes hyped about varsity status. And so
Yeah.
you should see when he comes in and he does his presentations for allocations or anything like that. Even when it was for varsity status, it was just like a very proud moment. It was one of those where you're like, this is what it's about. Because the passion and the drive that he has is, unreal. So
Yeah, I think I've only kind of been with WSU Wrestling. This is my second season, and last year being my first, trying to get to know James, and yes, he's done I think an extraordinary job. And I don't know what his future plans are, but I know that WSU Wrestling, will probably whatever his future plans are. I know we can count on James to help, continue
yeah,
moving this program forward in the future.
he'll always be around.
He'll always be around.
Yep.
So, you kind of mentioned Phil and Susan Burnett. So, I'm starting to call Susan Coach Susan. I don't, I'm starting to call her Coach because, like a lot of coaches, she wears a lot of different hats. Um,
Yeah.
she does so much in the background. It's not even. I mean, it's amazing what Susan, just her intellect, her capability, and she hits it every single day. And then Coach Phil he is just so solid he's so great with the kids. I think he's been doing a great job of advocating for the needs of the program along with James and working with you. But share a little bit more time to brag on Phil and Susan Burnett and what it's been like to work with them, and like, how you see everything moving forward with them in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, honestly, like what a power couple, right? Like they're just phenomenal.
They really
Um,
are.
yeah. I mean they are incredible. Susan and Phil are just so easy to work with. And they're definitely part of that momentum, like huge piece of that momentum. It's I think what's been really cool is like James and Phil and Susan, they all whenever they're advocating for something, they're on the same page about things. And it's really great because, then they're bringing to me the ideas and Phil is a dreamer and Susan is the logistical side of things.
Very much
And
so.
you've got James somewhere in that sweet spot. So when you bring them all three together, they've really been able to make some really cool things happen. Susan is so great to work with because yeah, her background in history, I mean, she has a lot of accounting background. So she's been so incredible with their budget, really making sure things are just like on par with exactly where they should be to be fiscally responsible, which is awesome. Um, and Phil, wow, what can I say about Phil? I mean, he's just a great coach. He literally sends me updates all the time on how everyone's doing, how everyone's health is.
Yeah.
Like we did this, and I'm so proud. Like he
Yeah.
has proud moments every time I see him. I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever seen him in a poor mood of any kind. Like he has always got the best spirit, the best mentality, so positive. And that's what a great coach is. And he really does put all of his heart into making sure their students first, their
Yeah.
athletes as well, and that like he really advocates for what those students need, especially when they start to see like competition always, and when the team's mentality might be like, no, you have to be ready for this competition, like throw everything aside, make sure you're ready. And Phil's like, hold on, let's make sure everyone's in a good spot. Do we need this night off? Do we need to do a study session? Let's have a team meeting to make sure we're all on the same page. He's really good about all those things. He's also really great with all of our coaches and making sure all of our coaches are in a space where they feel like they're just a part of the team all the time. And if you don't know this already about Phil, which I'm sure people already do, he is just the family guy, right?
He
Like,
really is.
they're like, you all are family because you're part of this kook family. And I think that's just the coolest mentality.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you really kind of nailed it on the head too when you said he's a dreamer. Like he
Mm-hmm.
really does have a dream and he doesn't let go of the dream. He just keeps pushing it forward. And I know that's really hard sometimes with the
Yeah.
challenges that naturally come with just being a coach. I don't care if it's a university, athletic department team, or if it's a varsity club team. It doesn't matter to me. There's just so much every season that needs to be accomplished, or things we're trying to push forward. He never lets go of the dream. He puts out a very welcoming mat to all students, which I think is critical on a campus like Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're a student that has, maybe more of an elite wrestling background or a very successful high school background, he's just as welcoming to the student that's like, I just want to try wrestling. And
Mm-hmm.
he wants the student to have to learn, to have a good experience, but most importantly, to feel like they have found a sense of community somewhere on the campus. Uh,
Absolutely.
and I agree with you 100%. One of the things I think I'm really proud of, and Phil and Susan have definitely set the tone, which is your academics absolutely will come first.
Yep.
Goal is not to get into WSU. The goal is to graduate from Washington State University. And
Hmm.
if we need to, change what we're doing on the athletic side of things through the varsity club to make sure that those students are prioritizing that, they just do an excellent job, an
They
excellent
do.
job.
They
So
always support like families too and like figuring out. So like if a student got hurt or there's some sort of injury,
yeah,
he's so good about knowing like processes and steps to help support just not only the student, but like figuring out the logistics of what comes next
yeah,
or whatever. And he also keeps them involved in the program even when they are hurt. So in the last couple of weeks, we've had a couple students who've gotten hurt at competition, and he's like, no matter what, they have worked so hard this season. I'm going to make sure that they're coming to all the competitions so
yeah,
long as they want to, and he really makes sure that they continue to feel that sense of community, even if they're in a tough stage for some whatever
yeah.
reason. So
Well, that's athletics for you. Everything's fine till you break your wrist.
yep,
Whatever.
exactly. Yes, exactly.
So, Melanie, is this your first time like being around wrestling, being working with wrestling people? Are we all just a new sports animal for you?
Well, um, uh, I've been working around sports for some time.
Mhm.
And before wrestling, the only club close to it that I had ever worked with was a jujitsu club, which has the format and a similar format,
Yeah,
but obviously a different sport altogether. So yes, you all are the first wrestling club I've worked with. And it's amazing the sense of community you all have. It's a pretty different culture with wrestling in the best way possible, because it really is just like there's so much pride in what you all do. Not only that, but it's like it really is so family oriented. Like everyone knows everyone,
yeah,
especially around here in this
yeah.
community. So yeah, y'all are amazing.
And when we say all, I think what's been really cool, and again, I only came in last year, but I think it's really cool that the program, through like James's leadership and Phil and Susan's leadership, and some amazing women that have stepped into the wrestling club, really starting to advance the women's team, build
Yes.
build and grow and develop a women's team within this wrestling program. I know that has not always been the case in the past.
Hmm.
This year they had a significant increase in roster size. I Recruiting sounds like it's going really, really well, so we should
Hmm.
be expecting even bigger numbers next year.
Hmm.
What is it kind of, we the words inclusion, diversity are terms that are often very used, but certainly important when we talk about university campuses. But what does it mean to you that WSU Wrestling is really making a intentional effort to expand opportunities for women in this club?
I think it's really powerful, because we don't often see clubs go beyond their original scope. For example, we don't often see a club that branches from a team that includes all to a team that can truly say we've got a men's and a women's side, but we also include anybody who would like to take part. Um, it has been so fun to watch how many women have started wrestling here and have loved it so much that they continue through, and that they're not just making it through one year, they're making it through multiple years. And I
Yes.
truly mean that. That right there is showing how inclusive this team has been and continues to be, and how welcoming they are. Because a lot of times we see them kind of start off and then potentially be like, well, I'm not sure, there's not many of us on the team and it
Yeah.
feels a little comfy. But with wrestling, it's been like, no, you're here, you're part of this. And not only that, but I think we've fostered a community where that team keeps getting bigger and bigger, because these women are having such powerful experiences that they're really showing other women that, like, hey, this is a great experience that I want you to be a part of. You should want to be a part of. And so when they come and visit, I mean, it's incredible, because now we're getting people who are not only being such great role models for the team, but also advocating for the team and new women who are being recruited in. And that's what it's all about. I love to see that we have you now as a coach, which is incredible that we have someone who can really lead these women to being their own team potentially under the, you know, varsity wrestling umbrella. Now we've got, two different teams, all one community. And that's a powerful thing.
I gotta say, we were just in Hoquiam, Washington for the NCWA National Women's Duels.
Mm-hmm.
We brought a full lineup, in
Yeah.
three-way class, and it was really cool. I mean, just like in one season, such a big change. And the women are they're they're wonderful people. They're great students, and it's been a lot of fun to see how the women's team is growing, expanding, and changing their enthusiasm, how some of them are getting like, we really want to continue to make this team better, how they're
Mm-hmm.
becoming invested. So this is just another really cool thing, for WSU wrestling. And I mean, this year is great. I can't imagine what
Yeah.
is gonna
Well, and
hold.
honestly, I can't wait to expand like practice times for everybody, like make sure there's, more practice time for time together as the whole team, some separate practice time for like the women's team, the men's team, and just to
Yeah.
be able to have to expand that and continue to expand that. I also think, yeah, our women's representation, even on our sport club council, we have one member who's on our sport club council. We have their treasurer, who she is phenomenal at keeping up with everything with Susan and
Oh, go ahead, name
finance.
drop. Who are these great?
Oh, we got Sarah Plummer. She's great, and she's on
Yeah.
our sport club council. And she does such a great job of being an unbiased opinion in the room for all the big decisions we make as a sport club federation, which is on behalf of all 25 clubs. And so she is just she's been a really great presence in the space, because it is very typical that a lot more males than females are actually on the board. All right, Mariama has been such a great part of our team, because she has been working on the financials like really closely with Susan. So they meet frequently, and she comes and meets with me at least once a month, if not more. And she's like on it with all the transactions. She'll be like, "This is, I'm noticing that this hasn't shown up yet, and this is, where we're at with what we projected." And she's on it all throughout the year, and so she's been just such an asset. And she's been doing that a couple of years, and really kind of grown into the position and just
Yeah.
been kind of a big leader for the team. I mean, if they didn't have Mariama to help with all those things, we'd be in a very different place financially, that's for sure. So
I had the opportunity to attend a class with her.
mm-hmm.
The last time I was on campus, practice is in the evening. So during the day, I have a lot of, kind of dead time. And I told the kids, I said, I would like to come to class with you.
Cool.
So Annika did an absolutely phenomenal job of setting up a whole itinerary for me with instructions and maps and meet times. And this is, you're going to meet here and you're going to do this class. It was phenomenal. And so one of the classes I got to go to a class with Mariama. And yeah, just spectacular. She's you know part of this, I love the student officer roles that we have as part of club. When you go to a
Mm-hmm.
university program, you're there strictly for athletics.
Mm-hmm.
Your sport may require you to do fundraising events or things like that, or do presentations and stuff. But to take such a adult responsibility for things like what you're saying,
Yeah.
regard to our finances and our accounting. I really love that's a part of the club experience, and that we give women like her a place to come in and shine and like show off what she's capable of. And then in turn, I love that the University Recreation is providing that, because then that goes on the resumes for these kids as they're looking for their whatever's coming next for them. And yeah, I'm so glad
Absolutely.
she's awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's important too, because I love when a student comes to me at the end of their college career and they ask me to be a reference for something, because I'm like, absolutely, you are essentially working for UREC, Especially
Yeah,
possible. I mean, it's the best like internship type of experience or practicum type of experience that you could
right.
possibly do. I mean, there's so much learning that happens in that time, especially when you become an officer. You're learning how to manage your peers. I mean, you're learning how to manage
Oh boy.
financials, manage keeping things straight with travel, which I mean, with wrestling club is just like, there is always something. Um, Planning for clinics and, recruitment events. And there are just so many things. And it's amazing when they connect the dots. It's amazing when they build that resume and realize all the great experiences that they've had. And I just love that. It's usually comes towards the end of their experience when they're like, wow, can't believe it's coming to an end. And at the same time, they're like, this has been awesome, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, and I bet from your side, that's got to be a really satisfying, got to be a really satisfying kind of moment when you have that with them and you see them being so successful. And then, when they're asking for those kinds of, you know, um, things for the resume from you, I just that's good. I'm glad you have that, Melanie, because I know it's a lot of it is kind of tough to some of the things that the challenges that we have, whether it's our club or another club trying to grow and advance, which
Yeah.
kind of brings me to, well, there's challenges. There's also a lot of really cool, what I would call victories, or the highs, and
Yeah.
a couple highs that I think maybe not everybody knows about. So a lot of people know about the varsity club status, which is certainly a huge feather in the UREC cap, in your cap, in Phil and Susan and James cap. But even just something like getting new mats for the wrestling
Yeah.
room. I'm not sure that people understand, and I talk about this a lot when I talk about when I've come up and what I've been able to see and experience, which is when I was a student there in the mid 80s, I am almost certain that the wrestling room the club team is using now is the same wrestling room that was there when I was there. It was the
Yep.
same wrestling room that was part of the varsity sport men's team that was there in the past. The fact that the students have access to that type of training facility on campus
Yeah.
um, is really special. And then just the work to get the funding put together, recognizing the need to replace I'm pretty sure the mats that were in there were also from the 80s.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
So, certainly from a health and safety point of view, it was worth a very serious discussion in how to address that. But we have new mats.
Yeah. And it's a process. It's,
It really
once
is.
again, that's the true work of Phil and Susan and James. Making sure those that we that we replace those. I don't think people realize even how one expensive mats are, but like the process even for a university for that. And
Yeah.
not to go too into the weeds, but essentially for something as expensive as those mats are, you have to put that out for bid for multiple companies to bid on, and then you have to get the exact specs you need for the exact space that you need.
Mhm.
And it takes a long time. So uh getting those mats and like all of the work that went into getting those mats was a nearly 2 year, if not more, process. And then once they got here, on the way here, parts of the mats had melted even before we'd even rolled them out. So we had to get someone come in and like replace a huge amount of things on the mats just to make them exactly what we needed. And so we finally got them, and they were here to use at the beginning of this fall. But I am certain that the mats you wrestled on were the mats that we had before.
I feel like they look
Yeah.
familiar, they smelled familiar, and
Yeah.
the density
Yeah.
and they were hard as a rock.
Oh my God, I know. Pat's like Phil was like, yeah, these are a hazard. Do you not see this? And I was like, oh, I see it.
Getting my university
Right.
to
Yeah.
get on board. Yeah, and and the other thing that people should know is that wrestling, what we call it our wrestling room,
Yeah.
really it's really a multi-purpose room. It's not used just by the wrestling team. We share it with other clubs and activities,
Yeah.
and so we had to be able to make sure we got mats that could be rolled up and rolled up really easy, put down easy, so
Moved around. Yeah.
found.
Yeah.
Um, but no, it's great to be able to accomplish something like that, and I think
Yeah.
most folks would be envious to be able to, like you said, long process, but they'd be envious. They should be.
Yeah.
Our mats are.
Having that
Uh,
access has been amazing. They also have a little bit of access here at the SRC. They would use one of our mat rooms here for a Friday practice, which is nice. And And those mats, it's so nice to have new mats as well because we can actually host a lot more competition and more here, which is great. Because before we would have to literally ask around the area and see if people had additional mats to bring
Right.
into either Pullman or wherever we were hosting. And so it just kind of creates like less burden. And actually is financially much better for the team because over time, the amount of money that we spend on renting mats from other places was put into new mats that were necessary and needed. And now we have our own to transport and use.
Okay, so I think mats are cool, but let's talk about something even cooler, which is that the Washington State Legislature passed a bill to approve funds, state funds for um, wrestling programs at the university level around the state. And
Hmm.
so that was going to all be done through a grant process. And Washington State University was awarded a grant. We were
Hmm.
awarded money. And I know Susan Burnett, again, Susan and Phil, Susan worked tirelessly on putting together the grant application,
Hmm.
double, triple, quadruple checking everything, every word, every dollar amount. And so just talk a little bit about what it's like to get such a tremendous sum of money and just the work involved and again, just kind of another feather in the cap for you, Rec, in the WSU program.
Yeah. Well, first of all, huge shout out to Susan and Phil for the work that was put into that. I mean, yes, hours on hours on hours. It was incredible. Yeah, so they were granted a WASAC grant, which is the first time that UREC has ever done a grant for a sport club. So it was a learning
We're just,
curve.
we're
Yeah,
just
right. It was like a major grant of any kind. It was a new process for all of us, which was really interesting to kind of go through the process, but also like to be like, oh my gosh, are we doing this right? Are we not? We're gonna
yeah,
get this grant. I hope we do. And so with the WASAC grant, they were granted $90,000 over 2 years, which is incredible. So it took us so much time to figure out specifically what that money will be used for and how to be most useful for the team and their growth and development moving forward. Because the one thing they want is to be able to travel as much to keep costs low for those students
yeah,
and to be able to have a coach, a salaried coach continuously. Um, and they do tremendous fundraising every year, but that actually is a break even budget, just that fundraising right there,
yeah.
with being able to cover a coach's salary and how much it costs for them to travel every year. So, this incredible grant is a 2 year grant to be able to cover part of coach's salary, a huge amount of travel for the team, and then I believe, a new scale for the team, which is used in all kinds of competition. I'm sure you could talk more to that than I could.
Some earmarked items in there,
Yeah.
just things like a scale. So we have a scale for the men's team and a separate scale for the women's team. I think there were
Yeah.
some line items for things that would be specific to growing and supporting the women's program. But like you
Mhm.
said, some of the top priorities, and I wish Susan was with me to get a little bit more into that. But to your point, our varsity club status is dependent upon making sure we maintain current and future funds for
Mhm.
the maintenance of a paid salaried coach.
Mhm.
Why do we want that? Because it creates stability and longevity for the club. Um,
Mhm.
Club programs typically, when we have a revolving door of coaches, whether the coach is sometimes the coach is another student on campus. It might be someone that is not a student, but they're like, sure, I'll help start a club, and so oftentimes these people can only you know coach a club for 1 or 2 years at the most, and then they cycle out and they have other demands, and so when we lose the coaches for the clubs, we usually lose the club. So
Mhm.
the stability that we're looking for to maintain, to kind of keep pushing this towards these standards and growth that we want for the men's and women's team, that stability of the salary coach is really important.
Mhm.
So that was a big priority for the grant. And then travel, we want to make sure that when we qualify student athletes to our national tournament, that we're not having to do, emergency fundraising. We want to maintain, as you said, that regional and national commitment to excellence in competition. And then we asked for funds to continue supporting the women's program, and just some other things. So um, yeah, super cool. And didn't you have to like take a class or
Yeah,
something to
actually,
like?
this was kudos to my boss.
Oh,
So we needed, this sounds so fancy, but you needed a grant director essentially for the program that you're housed under. And so I had been gone for the holidays, and my boss was here, and she's like, "Looks like I'm going to be a grant director." And so she did. She had to take a bunch of classes and make sure that she met all the qualifications in order to manage a grant through the university. And so that allows her to be a manager for the specific account that the grant funds are in. And then just to be the kind of communicator between WASAC and us.
yeah.
So,
And for anyone who doesn't know, WASAC is the Washington, I think it's Student Academic Council or
mhm,
Washington State Academic Council
mhm.
is the acronym. But do you foresee other I mean, the success of a grant? Do you foresee you encouraging other clubs to seek out grants?
I think y'all
From this
paved the way
experience?
for starting that. Yeah, because I will say I don't think as many clubs as many dedicated coaches in the way that we can, like wrestling club can or our crew club can, kind of have time committed to that.
Yeah.
Because as you said, coaches are mostly students for like 90% of our clubs, except for three, literally. So there are only three clubs who have designated coaches outside of being a student. So, so for students to go through that process and to do academia and those types of things, it can be a little tougher. But there are lots of like internal grant processes, like with the not University Recreation, with WSU, where there's small grants that you can apply for your registered student organization, which is what all of our clubs are. Um, and it depends on what organization and association you're part of that has grant opportunities or not. So this is a really cool way to pave the way for other clubs to be able to look into grant processes. And now I know how to do that, which is
Yeah.
great. I support that even better because of the wrestling club, which I think is just the coolest.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So, okay, what other like do we have some other highlights that I'm not thinking? I just kind of went down the easy road of like mats and a grant.
Yeah.
Um, are there just some other things that people don't know about, or it's like, oh, well, we did have a very success. We've had some other successful the golf tournament this summer.
Yeah. It was a huge
Like
success.
the first organized. Okay, we're really going to try to invest in a fundraiser this summer.
Mhm.
It's the first time. How about your thoughts on how that golf fundraiser went?
Yeah, well, it was the first time that I was truly pulled into it. I during my summer, my administrative hat is for something else. So I managed a kids camp during the summer, and so it was really nice for me to actually be able to step away from that and be able to um actually travel and help out with the golf tournament. We tried using a software this summer. The Wi-Fi didn't work very well, so that was a whole new and learning curve. But
Oh, I didn't
um,
know. I was still doing the raffle and
I
the
know
stuff,
everyone's
so I
doing
didn't know
great.
that.
That's why I was there, just like panicking on my computer. It was fine.
I still got.
But
Don't
no,
worry, Melanie. I still got charged. I think it worked just fine.
but so we're trying to integrate more ways for people to either be involved in that. So we did a silent auction. There were ways to do a little fundraising, but really that fundraiser was incredible because it allowed students as part of the club to meet people in the community who support the wrestling community. And to be able to really just kind of tell their story, to connect with either alumni or patrons. I mean, I had so many people even coming up to me and just asking about the program or being like, I used to be a wrestler, back in the day. And
Yeah.
I loved it. It is all about that sense of community around it. And yes, fundraising came with it and it was very successful. I can't even remember the exact number that they fundraised, but it was a really great way to start off their year knowing that they're like headed in like the best direction with their year, having the support from all these different members of the community and on the West Side. And
Yeah.
also it was a beautiful day, so that was
Really
helpful.
was. It's a
It's
gorgeous
the location and
location,
all.
beautiful
Yeah,
day, great food. They had it catered. I had a
yeah,
great time. My husband and I came up, and it was a beautiful day, beautiful location, great golf course. I
yeah.
think next year, Melanie, did you do any golfing, or were you just strictly?
I would love to say that I golf, but I do not. That's
Well,
one of the
Melanie, I
sports I
think you
don't.
and I should just golf. I mean, what's the
Yeah,
worst that's gonna happen? We'll join up as a team, and
yeah,
I just have to carry the ball down the fairway, and
that's exactly right.
nobody's looking at us because we're not a threat.
I'll golf with both hands. It'll be great.
So yeah, pretty successful golf fundraiser.
Yeah. They also did one called Scoreboard,
Yeah,
which was incredible. So that
that
one
was
was really cool. That was a
yep.
all virtual platform, but it was really user friendly, which was amazing. So they fundraised um nearly 30,000 doing that
Yep.
one, which was amazing because that got every single club member involved to
Yeah.
do kind of their part in fundraising, reaching out to their community of humans and just getting some good fundraising that way. Um, so scoreboard fundraiser is another one that they do, but one of the major things that they do, which is I think really unique and also something just to really celebrate, is that they do different youth clinics all around and they do different showcases all around. And that is very unique to wrestling. There are not many other clubs that we have here that do something similar, and that's great for recruitment, but it's also great for connecting our community out into the broader Washington areas or even I think in Oregon. So it's pretty cool what they do with those.
Yeah, and we're gonna have a kids camp this February.
Hmm.
And one of the things that's I think exciting about when they have one on campus is that if we get high school students
Yeah.
that are, juniors or seniors, and this is an opportunity for them to get up on campus if they're interested
Mhm.
in becoming a student at Washington State University. They do get to see that wrestling room. They get to be with
Yeah.
members of our men's and women's team. And in years past, we've had some really amazing men and women do campus tours
Mhm.
and really hype up Washington State University and the program. And I think it's that again is just another great leadership opportunity for our wrestlers. And
Yeah.
I think WSU Wrestling should take a little pride in we're bringing more people to Pullman. Keeping
Absolutely.
them Cougars. But I think we have a lot of students that are interested in going to Washington State University. We have a lot of girls in the state of Washington that wrestle. There are last year's numbers for Washington. There were over 3,000 girls wrestling in high school in the state of
Wow.
Washington. And not every single girl or boy coming out of their high school wrestling experience wants to wrestle for a university, NAIA, NCAA or NJCAA program. They're coming to Washington State because this is their academic school of choice.
Mhm.
But they still feel like they'd like to do some wrestling and they're not really sure they want to. If some still want to be highly competitive, great. We have opportunities for you to be highly competitive. Others
Mhm.
just want to stay close to wrestling. Great. We have opportunities for you to do that too. So I think our kids camp that's taking place towards the end of this month. I think it's going to be big. Phil and Susan are counting up the numbers. I think it's going to be a very well attended event, and I'm
Yeah.
excited to see how many of those students are going to be high school students, and
Yeah.
how that influences their decision about choosing Washington State University. We'll see. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the numbers are looking great for that and everything's prepped. All of the student leadership from the wrestling club are actually the ones who are coming up with the programming for that camp. And so they are very excited about it. They've been working hard on
Yeah,
it. And so it'll be
yeah,
good.
they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
So we are gearing up into our postseason. Conference is in the beginning of March, and then nationals is like that weekend, like 2 weeks after that.
Hmm.
Last year we had to go to Puerto Rico for
Yeah.
national.
Yes, you did.
This year it's in Louisiana, so a little better.
Yeah.
Something that I think not a lot of people know is that our student athletes, um, they not being in a university program, they don't have some of the protections, I guess, and considerations. One
Sure.
of those being that if you have to take an exam or test while you're at nationals, You don't
Yeah.
get free pass for that. Many, I think Susan proctored 17 exams last year.
Yep.
And what that means is that Susan is, when we say proctor exam, the student athlete is somewhere separated from everyone else, and taking their exam, and it's Susan's responsibility to oversee the administration of that exam. And
Yeah, I know.
and then submit it into the school. She did 17 of those last year.
Yeah, I
Um,
know. And it's the support behind that is it is up to a professor to decide whether that's acceptable or not. And
yes,
so it's up to Phil, Susan, and I to kind of come up with a plan for each of those students, along with the student working with their professor. But a lot of times it has to come from an administrator like me, or from Phil or Susan to help a professor see the legitimacy of the awesomeness that they're doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, which is important. It's very important. Like these, there's actually one there's only one regulation for athletics or any type of sport or any type of like student organization on campus. Like there is an ordinance that says like you should allow a student to miss a class or be able to make those things up,
right.
but you don't have to.
You don't have to.
And so yeah, it's up to us, up to the student to be able to make that happen, and to get a professor to trust us enough to be able to proctor those things, communicate well enough to allow them to both compete and do that. And just the amount of time that a student has to put into both getting ready for competition and being ready for that final or whatever that looks like. I mean, it's pretty awesome. These students are doing big things and
They are.
managing a lot.
They are. We have some, I mean, all of our students are choosing what I would consider rigorous degrees at the
Mm-hmm.
University. We have a lot of engineers. We have a lot of math and science kids,
Mm-hmm.
students,
Yep.
and they're very serious about their academics. They're reaching pretty high, and just sitting there watching 17 tests take place
Yeah.
in Puerto Rico. I'm like, okay, this is not something that you typically see, for university athletics, but
No.
definitely a part of the club. Melanie, is
Mm-hmm.
there anything else that you wanna shout out? You wanna share with anyone that may be watching this episode?
Oh gosh, I think we covered a lot of the
Yeah.
things. But I think just to be on the lookout for how they do at nationals. I know that they'll have some posts coming once they get their new website up and running.
Yep.
Which be on the lookout for that in the next month or so. And they will have some new content up on there of how everyone's done. One cool thing that we're going to be doing is last year the women's team was an all academic national champions,
Yep.
which is really cool. So we will be putting a banner here at the Student Recreation Center. So if anyone is ever back on campus, wants to do a tour through the Student Recreation Center, we're going to be putting up a banner to
Cool.
yeah to do
Oh
that.
man.
And then anytime a club gets third, second, or first in any type of national competition, we put those on banners. So we're gonna have a few of those. I can feel it this year.
I can feel it too. I know that was a really, again, Phil was super, super proud of that achievement. Uh,
Yeah,
he still is like, I am so proud of them.
me too.
It's hard, it's hard what
Yeah.
they're doing. And this year's national tournament, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more teams and competitors, both men and women, because Puerto Rico, I think the financing of that, a lot of clubs and programs chose to stay home. So I
Hmm.
think this year's national tournament will be very good and very competitive. But I am very confident that our men and women will be prepared, and that they're going to rise to the occasion, and they're going to represent all the Cougars out there, proudly. So, Melanie, thank you so much for taking this time with us.
Absolutely.
We have a duel this Sunday against Evergreen and Big Ben. I'm going to be there. Are you going to be there?
Oh, I'm hoping to make an appearance.
Okay. One of these days, we're going to get Melanie to come to wrestling practice, and we're going to show her some technique. Just want to make sure you're up to speed with us on everything.
Oh, absolutely. Just got to make sure I stretch really well.
All right. Thanks, Melanie.
Yeah, thank you so much.